Welcome to AskJV episode 3. Today we're talking about active versus passive pickups, how to get more clarity in your overhead tracks, developing and fine-tuning your ear, and how and when to raise your rates.
3, 2, 1. This is the AskJV Show.
Our first question comes from Rick. Active and passive pickups have different characteristics. Do you find that one is easier to mix in general than the other? I am interested in both guitar and bass.
Hey Rick, good question. It varies a lot depending on, the project itself and the pickups and the guitar. But in general, I would say for active pickups, I would prefer them on, more straight up metal or really heavy stuff. They give a little bit more brightness and bite in the mix. But on the flip side, I find that they're less forgiving for, needing to EQ and shape the sound in the mix. So for that reason, I'd say if I had to give one answer, I prefer passive pickups for guitars. I just find them a little easier to EQ and to shape in the mix the way that I want and just sound a little bit smoother to my ears. But like I said, for certain genres, certain projects, active pickups can be good. So it's just a case-by-case basis. Try out whatever you have available and see what sounds best. And also, like I said, it depends on the pickups themselves. Some active pickups just clip the signal so much right at the pickup that it just sounds too harsh to my ears and too unnatural. But there are some active pickups out there that are a little better and are actually, end up being better than passive in some situations. For bass, it's kind of the opposite. I actually find that the active pickups in bass give me a little bit more control and power on the low end, sound a little more aggressive in the high mids as well. So I'd say on bass, I'll also go passive too, but the active pickups I've had experience with on bass are really cool.
Our next question comes from Ryan. Ryan asks, I'm having a hard time getting clarity in my overheads while still getting separation between the overheads and the drums themselves. It also creates a problem adjusting the overall high end with the rest of the mix.
So Ryan, I have a very specific approach and kind of aim that I go for when I'm recording and mixing overheads, and that's that I'm not trying to capture the whole kit in the overheads. I want to capture mostly just the cymbals. So that means if I'm recording drums, I'm miking the cymbals very close, maybe only maybe 2 feet above the crashes as opposed to, being way up trying to capture the whole kit. I try to actually mic the cymbals, so to speak. So that's one tip if you're recording, mic them close. In the mixing stage, that means that I'm cutting out a lot of the low end and the mid-range. So you can filter out, depending on the track, anywhere up to like 600 hertz. And that's going to cut out a lot of the bleed from the actual drum kit out of the overhead sound and leave you with mostly just the cymbal sound. And that allows you to turn them up a little more in the mix and have more control over the cymbals themselves and not, affecting the rest of your drum sound when you're turning up and down the overheads. I did do a video tutorial of this showing how I get extra cymbals out of my overhead tracks when there's too much drum bleed in there. Basically a strategy of cloning the track and then treating it really differently in parallel and then mixing it back in to basically get even more cymbal isolation out of the overhead track. So I'll try to link that up here on the screen so you can check out that video.
This question comes from Tyler. For your next video, can you explain how long it took you to develop a finely tuned ear and feel like you had a grasp on mixing and mastering? Also, in the very beginning, where did you get the majority of your experience?
Hey Tyler, in the very beginning, most of my experience came from just recording friends and friends of friends in my studio for really cheap or free. That just spending a lot of time working on my own. It was new and exciting, and even though I had no idea what I was doing, I was in there all the time, day and night, like I've talked about before. So that's where I got most of my early experience. I also interned for 6 months at a big studio, kind of intern/assistant gig there, and that helped me a lot because, for the first 2 years when I was just on my own, it was very, very, very slow progress because I was just teaching myself in my own little studio, isolated, trying to just, Google search or use online forums or whatnot. And the progress is very, very slow that way. Once I went and interned in my third year. It only took 6 months, and after that I got to the point where I was like, I think I can try this full time, and that's what I did. Then it was just more of just working all the time, getting more and more experience. Honestly, it's a lifelong process. Even to this day, every project I do, I think I'm fine-tuning my ears, like you said, even more. And throughout my whole career, it's been this story of you finish an album, and then 6 months later it gets released, and you listen and you think, oh man, like I would have done something so much differently, or maybe so much better now, only a few months down the road. And that's constantly happening. And I think that, from most even bigger name producers and mixers that I've heard, that's still a common experience where they feel like you're constantly learning something new. So it's a lifelong journey, and you'll keep getting just better and better and better and better. To answer your question a little better, how long did it take me to feel like I had a grasp on it? I'd say, I guess 3 years, but the first 2 of those were really slow progress, and then it was once I got kind of the over-the-shoulder intern kind of training in the studio is when I really got ahead faster. And 6 months after that, I tried to go full-time, and it worked out. I didn't have to go back to working other jobs or anything. I just kept progressing incrementally from there.
Our last question comes from Madison. When you were recording all the local bands you could to get your name out there, were you charging them? I find myself torn between charging my normal rate and losing clients who can't afford it, or just saying screw it and recording bands for free just to get more work and get my name out there.
In the early days, it was free. I had no idea what I was doing. I knew that I wanted to do it kind of, as a career, but I had no idea, what I was actually doing in terms of recording and mixing skills. So it was definitely free, and it was my own band. It was friends, friends of friends, and, it gradually snowballs. But I definitely started for free, then gradually, really, really cheap, $20 a song, don't care how long it takes kind of thing. And then as more and more people start to come to me, then you just raise your rates more and more. I know what you're saying. It can be difficult to navigate. You definitely have to keep doing more free and cheap stuff until you get to that threshold where you need to make a choice and actually take a big leap, maybe like double your rates, and actually just totally cut out kind of the lower end of clients that are not going to pay you and not going to take it seriously to get the results that you want. But you've got to be confident in your skills before that happens. You got to be confident that you can deliver the value that you're going to charge. So in general, the way I approach this and give advice is that, if you're starting from the very bottom with limited experience and skills, then you got to just do it free, just because number one, you've got to get experience. And, I was talking to Andreas Magnuson, a producer, mixer who I really like, and, he was comparing it to, people get into this recording and mixing and they want to be making money right away. When they haven't earned it, they haven't got the skills yet, compared to other jobs. You pay a lot of money and invest a lot of time in hopes of ending up at a career, whether that's a 2, 3, 4 year university degree or something. You expect to spend a ton of money on that, and you expect to have years of not working and just learning so that eventually you can get to that career. So don't try to take a shortcut is what I'm saying. You will have to, you don't have to go to school for this, but you will have to invest some time and money to get there, and you shouldn't expect it to happen super, super fast. So my advice is always to start free right off the bat, get experience, learn, do as much as you can, and then just kind of follow where the market's leading. So as you're, if you're doing stuff for free, then you start getting more and more people, then you start charging a little bit, and then as you start filling up, generally I would raise my rates whenever I was booked up, let's say 2 months in advance. Then I would raise my rates because, I couldn't accommodate all the people who were wanting to record. And then next time that happens again, you raise your rates again. And usually it's like there's a little dip, and then when you raise your rates, and then it fills up, you raise them again, there's a little dip, fills up. So it's always scary too, because, I think you kind of allude to this in your question. If you're going to start charging more, you're afraid that you're going to lose your clients, and you will have a little dip because you will kind of cut out the clients who are not willing to grow up with you. But that's okay. As you grow, and if you want to make any career, you actually have to make those steps and raise your rates to actually cut out certain levels of clients and attract other ones. So ultimately you get to the point where it's that kind of tipping point stage where you need to make a big dramatic increase in your prices. Once you feel confident that you have the skills and you can deliver the value to match the price, then you need to raise your rates, cut out those lower end clients and attract the higher end clients. Because think about it, the bands that you ultimately want to work with, are they going to be looking at a studio and at a producer that's charging your rates? Chances are that a bigger band, an established band, is not going to even consider a producer or a studio, that's charging $20 an hour or, charging $50 a song. That's just, to them, communicates a lack of experience and quality. So, it's not exactly a simple answer, but I hope that helps. I hope that helps figure out your career there. That's it for this week. Thanks to everyone who's sending in questions. It's a lot of fun doing this. If you want a question answered, just go to ASKJVPod.com. You can fill out a form there and send your question in. I'll try to get to all of the questions if possible in future episodes. Please subscribe on iTunes. Leave a review if you like this podcast. You can also subscribe on YouTube if you like watching it here instead. And lastly, I've got a free mixing cheat sheet for you over at hardcoremusicstudio.com. Just head there. You'll see a button for free mixing cheat sheet right at the top. Just put in your email there and I'll send it to your inbox. And it's been a really helpful tool for a lot of mixers so far. So thanks. We'll see you again next week.